And the second session is on contemporary research and ethics in HR and OB. So I request Dr. C.M. Javalgi sir to introduce today's speaker, Mr. A.H. Sagar sir. Sir, please.
Respected Madam and respected Sagar, H, and my dear participants of the FDP. So it is my proud privilege once again to introduce the great personality that we had an interaction with A.H. Sagar during one of our faculty development programs. It is indeed really a great introduction. So A.H. Sagar is a political, moral, educational philosopher, an international educationist, researcher, and a national sports person. He is a multidisciplinary in the true sense of the term. He has discussed and learned from some of the greatest philosophers, scientists, and educationists on the planet. Along with many years of teaching experience in schools, colleges, and universities, he even gained a postgraduate degree in English while he was in India. Later, his passion for research took him to the University of Edinburgh, wherein he pursued MSc in Education and Educational Philosophy. That's where he was formally introduced to analytical philosophy. After the completion of his MSc in Edinburgh, he moved to London and joined the prestigious University College London. It stands first in the world university ranking for research in the Department of Education. He studied philosophy of science, social science, and humanities at UCL and started his research in education and human brain and mind. His breadth and depth of knowledge, spanning across education, philosophy, linguistics, history, economics, politics, biology, ethics, engineering, and foreign philosophy, is just fascinating. His energetic as well as inspiring lectures and training workshops are quite renowned. His critical and rational analysis of research problems are thought-provoking, being well known for his wit and humor. He is always dearly loved by his students. So far, he has delivered around 612 lectures around the world by invitation on various topics, the academic spectrum of science, social science, and humanities in schools, colleges, as well as universities. He has addressed more than 4 lakh students till date. He has appeared in various television interviews, in his training workshops for teachers, professors, participants, principals, parents, academicians, and policymakers. He tries his best to raise awareness among them. He is a national basketball player and he has also uses sports as a medium to inspire students while coaching them. He usually says that he gained a lot of his energy, courage, and confidence by being in sports. Being a lifelong learner, he says the more he learns, he realizes how little he knows. So, with this few points of very few points of A.H. Sagar, I would like to present you today's second session speaker. Okay. Contemporary. He'll be talking on contemporary research and ethics in HR and OB. Sir, are you able to listen to me? And you are the presenter now.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, very much.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm very fortunate to be here with you all. I wish I could have met you all face to face. We could have had a lot of activities. I could have made you all jump and dance with a lot of stimulating activities. But we are trying to make the best of what we have at the moment. So yeah, I'll discuss with you all regarding latest research in the Department of Industrial Psychology, as well as HR, organizational behavior, and ethics. Ethics is very close to my heart, and I'll be discussing about it today as well. Please feel free to ask, note down your questions. If you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer. Please let me know. In the end, we'll have time for question and answers. I'll try to get through this as soon as possible. And note down your questions. I'll be very happy to answer them all in the end. Okay, thank you very much. I hope we'll have a wonderful time today. I hope you're all able to look at the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. I don't think my video is necessary now. We'll go on discussing regarding contemporary research and ethics in HR and OB. Please let me know if there are any connectivity issues. If you have any problems, if I'm not audible, please feel free to let me know. Okay?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Sure. Thank you very much. Okay. This technique has helped me a lot in my life to be a continuous lifelong learner, and this has taken me a long way. Simple questions and repeating it. This is called Feynman technique. Richard Feynman is a famous physicist. He's a Nobel laureate physics professor. Fantastic person, very creative, unbelievable, more like a magician rather than a physicist. You know, he's you just look him up, Richard Feynman. When a space shuttle exploded and all the astronauts passed away, they wanted somebody to come in and investigate why it happened, to introspect. So NASA called in Richard Feynman, and using his critical thinking skills, which he had learned from being a phenomenal scientist, he conducted the investigation and found why things went wrong, how it went wrong, all the causes and effects. It was unbelievable. The research itself was unbelievable. His skills as a physicist he used in investigating this disaster. Okay, and you can find the whole ordeal. You can find it on YouTube. So you please watch how Richard Feynman exposes what actually happened in NASA, because of which all the astronauts died. Such a individual, this person, he has written a famous book called "You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman." It's called "You Must Be Joking, Mr. Feynman." Okay, please look it up if you're interested. You look up that book, and yeah, he introduced this technique, like how children are so creative, so ingenious, how they ask unbelievable questions. He introduced this, and I find it extremely useful, because I think in the course of time, people stop asking difficult questions because they feel it might make someone uncomfortable, it might become unpleasant, so they stop asking fundamental questions. But to bring in real changes, we need fundamental basic questions which will bring on paradigm shifts. Okay, many a times these are uncomfortable questions, these are difficult questions. Many a times even great scholars won't be able to answer them. You know, such difficult questions are prevailing. For example, everybody talks about gravitation. Okay, there are wonderful theories about gravitation, but till date, cause and effect is we haven't been able to find cause and effect, which is quite shocking. And even Richard Feynman speaks about it in YouTube. Very interesting how he speaks about magnetism as well as this. So please, I recommend and I request you to look it up. Okay, it will be wonderful learning. We have to be multidisciplinary. Just because we are in the Department of Industrial Production, or just because we are in the Department of Marketing or Management, doesn't mean that we don't have to look into all these wonderful researches that are going on in different departments, because it will give us different perspectives, you know, which are much needed at the moment. We need different perspectives. We need to look at the prevailing problems from different directions so that we can find some ingenious solutions. And there are quite a few problems prevailing as of now. So yeah, use this technique. Choose a concept, teach a child. Children will ask unbelievable questions, and then you can identify the gaps in your learning and we can all review and simplify and go on repeating it. Achieving that simplicity is extremely difficult, as we all know. So this concept helps me in that direction, to be a lifelong learner. Okay, I think it's extremely important to keep an open mind and to remember the great words of Socrates, who said, I know that I don't know anything. That's why I might be a very intelligent person alive, he said once when he was questioned. Okay, so that's important. There are a lot of phenomenal changes coming in the department. So quite shocking, quite interesting. Since we are dealing with behavioral tendencies, it's very elusive. Human nature itself is so complicated. We haven't been able to unlock the mysteries of human nature. Quite unbelievable. If somebody asks, can you explain mother's love? Why mother loves someone so unconditionally, a child so unconditionally, we won't be able to answer it. Why mother behaves in the manner she does towards the child, what kind of affection which goes beyond all logic, reason, and rationale, which we can't codify. It's quite unbelievable. So since we are entering into the aspects of behavioral tendencies, how people behave, why they do what they do, especially in industrial settings or in an organizational setting, it's very interesting. And the peer pressure, when somebody is watching how they behave and no one's watching how they behave, and how they have put some kinds of restrictions to their own selves. All these things are very interesting. That's why different departments come in to contribute towards organizational behavior, very close to HR as well. We call it human resource. Basically, it's human beings with amazing qualities and trying to make them as productive as possible. Okay, as we know, no one is like, everyone is a resource in itself. We can't say that some people are useful just because they are physically challenged, they are not good resource. We can't do that anymore. But there are interesting terminologies. I can take up whole day if we just talk about how changes in terminologies have had a factor. For example, if in the past, if you used to travel in a train, you used to be called a passenger. Now in the train, you are a customer. Very interesting terminological shift, that is. Why it happened, how it happened, pros and cons of that terminology shift itself is an interesting research and study. So as I was talking about behavior, organizational behavior, human resource, a lot of interesting changes have come in here, especially artificial intelligence. As I was telling right in the beginning, we have to be extremely multidisciplinary, otherwise we can't get our head around things with kinds of developments that are going on all around us. What is this artificial intelligence? People talk about it all the time. AI, they say, oh my God, AI is doing that, this. First, we have to understand what is intelligence, ask questions about what is intelligence, how far we have come about in understanding what is intelligence. For example, if you remember, there was a theory by Howard Gardner in the Department of Education. They called it multiple intelligences theory. It was quite popular and many people started following it. But later, a lot of uncomfortable questions were raised about this multiple intelligences theory, bifurcating students as audiovisual learners, kinesthetic learners, so on and so forth, because it's extremely difficult to bifurcate the brain in that manner and say that this student is just an audiovisual learner or this student is just a kinesthetic learner. Maybe the student is a mixed learner of a mixed method. So all these different kinds of complications came in. So Howard Gardner was not able to give answers, appropriate answers to the questions raised against his theory. Okay, so why I'm saying this is, as soon as you when you hear the term artificial intelligence and then you bifurcate the question, as we ought to do as a good researcher, as a good research critical thinker, you say, what is intelligence? You ask the first question, what is intelligence? And then you see that you open Pandora's box. There are so many complicated things going on over there. It's like trying to understand human brain / mind. If I just call it brain, a group of scientists will attack me. If I just call it mind, another group of scientists will attack me. So I have to always write brain / mind in all my research papers. It's quite shocking that all the human research, and we haven't been able to remove that slash in the middle, brain / mind. Okay, very interesting. If I ask you the question, is there mind in the brain or brain in the mind? Then you have to pull your hair and think about it all day long. In fact, I have to tell you, if you solve that problem, that question which I asked, is there mind in the brain or brain in the mind, you'll win a Nobel Prize in cognitive neurosciences in the Department of Psychology and Philosophy of Mind. These are the three departments trying to understand human brain / mind and make a better sense of it. We haven't gone very far. So as you can see, the question, what is intelligence, itself is raising so many problems. So when you talk about artificial intelligence, yes, we have robots which can help us. And who have programmed these robots? We have programmed them. It's like Google. You ask a question to Google. Google doesn't think for itself. Google scans through all the documents that we have researched and uploaded, and Google gives an answer. Okay, so Google is not doing any original research. Google is scanning through all the documents that we have researched and uploaded, and Google is providing an answer. That's the kind of help we are looking at, especially when we talk about aspects of machine learning as well. We do something called big data analysis. So you collect a lot of data. A lot of data will be available to you at hand. For example, if you open your mobile now and if you check, there'll be a lot of permissions you'll be giving to different apps which collect all sorts of data. Okay, even when I talk about social network analysis on 11th, I'll be talking to you about social network analysis and experimental research methods in organizational behavior on 11th. So I'll discuss about these things in further detail. But if you look at your phone, in all your mobile phones, even laptops, you'll be unknowingly or knowingly providing permission for a lot of different applications to collect data, just like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or maybe Twitter, or you name it. All different sorts of apps are collecting data, and all these data, this data is very valuable because it comes from all different sources, different walks of life, different countries. All these data can be systematically categorized and it can be sold to people who want to purchase it. Okay, marketing, all different departments would like to purchase such data, and this huge amount of data, all different sorts of statistical modeling is done, and this data is analyzed in different ways, and that data will help people in understanding, developing better understanding regarding individuals. Even when they're trying to recruit, maybe HR, human resource personnel would find it much easier to recruit, try to understand tendencies, But I have to tell you, this big data analysis has its own strengths and weaknesses as well. Yes, you get a lot of data, but you should remember, all you get is an approximation. And that's why there is a big difference. There was a big fight, I'm not sure whether you know, there was a big fight, argument between David Hume, a philosopher, and Newton. Newton, a lot of different theories in science. Newton had developed all different fancy theories, and during that time when Newton had come up with these theories, David Hume, another famous philosopher from Scotland, he criticized he criticized Newton, and Newton very gracefully accepted the criticism. What David Hume said was, look, Newton, you're developing all these fancy theories, which is very good, but however, you're pulling the veil on what is actually happening at a distance permanently. Because, initially people like Galileo, they used to do a lot of different experiments, ball rolling down, why does the steam rise? Instead of falling, why does the steam rise even though it's heavier? So very interesting theory, very interesting research experiments used to be done. So when those real experiments were dropped out and theories were developed, so Hume criticized, saying that yes, these theories are very interesting, they'll give us an approximation, but we'll never know what actually is happening at distance because it is too complicated to understand. Very, very interesting. If you like such things, if you find such things fascinating, if you're interested in knowledge, why things are the way they are now, how it came about, it's fascinating, the story of science and all the technology, how it developed, what kind of arguments took place, what kind of debates, dialogues, how scientists and researchers fought amongst themselves intellectually and developed the theories which we have at the moment. It's very interesting. So you have to remember that all big data analysis does is gives us approximation. Okay, is that good enough for you? Fine. It's like weather. It's like predicting weather. Okay, it gives you approximation. Some scientists don't like it. Sometimes some people despise it. Some people say that no, look, what is this? For everything you're trying to find approximation. For example, bee scientists. Bees are amazing creature, honeybees, by the way, and they're different. They do different research. They're called bee scientists, and bee scientists do all different kinds of experiments. Okay, and they would never want to do big data analysis. They would despise big data analysis. So there is a difference. This dichotomy exists among researchers. You ought to know this. Okay, so but in the Department of Human Resource as well as in the Department of Organizational Behavior, to some extent, AI and machine learning will have an impact. If you like approximation, you love these tools and they'll bring in a lot of different changes. So this is happening now. This is the trend. They're trying to adopt artificial intelligence and machine learning. They're trying to bring it in to make mundane work, to make HR people get rid of mundane work, all kinds of paperwork, all these things would be automated. It will be much easier for you because you'll have a lot of data. So you'll have different statistical models to analyze based on which you can do all sorts of guesswork. But at the end of the day, human beings are human beings and they are unpredictable, as you can all imagine. But yeah, this is the trend. This is what's going on at the moment. A lot of research being done in this department, okay, trying to adopt this. So whether we like it or not, we should be prepared for it. Okay. Upskilling is peak now because, as you know, I'm not going to read everything from the slide because, as you can see, I'll explain it. No point reading everything out from the slide. So pandemic hit in, human invincibility, human arrogance and ego was challenged. We were booming, thinking that we are unstoppable, but suddenly an unseen virus hit us so badly that it made us rethink everything that we believed to be true. Okay, everything we held close to heart, many things which we had believed to be true from childhood, for many people, it was challenged. Why this is happening? How can a small virus create such a threat? So this human invincibility was challenged. It's like people in Wall Street had shivers, jitters running down the spine. So you should understand, people realize that unless we develop all these different sorts of skills, it will be very difficult to survive. Okay. So not just people on the top, even employees in the company ought to be really upskilled. They have to learn all different sorts of new skills. So a huge amount of money ought to be kept for upskilling. I'll give you an example. What happens exactly, why it happens. I'll give you an example. There are many so-called international schools in Bangalore. Okay, I can name them. They charge almost 25 lakh per year, right from kindergarten. 25 lakhs per year from kindergarten. Imagine, that's quite shocking. Okay, and many film stars, politicians, children, CEOs of big companies, they send their children to such schools. They go for international trips. They have a lot of exposure and they have a lot of confidence because people from different countries study in such schools. They have a lot of exposure and they're confident. They are pampered. They are respected highly in such schools. So they are never really challenged. They're never used to corporal punishments or anything as such. So their confidence level is at the peak. And you come to rural areas and you look at our students, the kind of confidence they have. I'm not talking about exception. I'm not talking about exceptions. If you're talking about French Revolution, these children have been to France. You're trying to teach French Revolution in the class and these children have visited France. They've seen the museums. They've seen what's gone. So the kind of exposure and the confidence they get is quite unbelievable. And when these people sit on their father's chair and they, as a gift, they're born with golden spoon, they become CEOs and they conduct interviews, they expect our students from rural areas to be like them, to have that skill, to have that exposure, to have that kind of communication skills, which is very difficult. As you see, it's very challenging. There are exceptions, but it is very challenging. So that's the kind of problem we face. People on the top have high expectations. They expect their employees to perform really well. But how many of them are ready to send all their employees to trips abroad? How much will it cost? Will the company be able to bear it? So this disparity in the kind of education they receive also has an impact. So when you conduct interviews, you can see that it is quite clearly visible. People who are in metropolitan cities who have had more exposure, their language, everything is very different. Okay, they are not very shy and confident in a different way. This has to be overcome. The kind of education that is given to these students in international schools, that kind of exposure should be available to all our children. Then we can expect better cream and better quality when we are conducting interviews. Okay, so this kind of upskilling is a must, and people have realized it. A lot of research being done in this area. So yeah, it's crucial now. Unless you upskill, unless you develop all these various skills, it will be very difficult to survive in the market. And as I was talking before, there are a lot of different kinds of analytics available to you now, okay, which can provide you hindsight as well as foresight. Okay, it can provide you it can help you analyze where exactly you went wrong, what went wrong. All these can be easily analyzed based on data-driven analytics. Okay, so it helps you become more efficient, okay, and develop better client experience, obviously, and revenue per employee would improve as such, and as well as performance of turnover in jobs, quality of, based on all the data that you receive, it is predicted that you can make better, you can hire employees of better quality, basically. Yeah, but I have my reservation in relation to this. No matter what data analytics, because I have to tell you pros and cons as well. I can't just say, just because it's a trend, I can't say it's perfect. No, it's not like that. It has, yeah, you get a lot of data, you get a lot of analytics related to the kind of applicants you have at the moment. But at the end of the day, it's a piece of paper. You have to meet individuals. You can shortlist based on that, but you have to meet individuals and you have to speak to them, and there's no substitution to that when you're hiring, especially. But yes, a lot of data analytics is available based on which you can shortlist, and it'll ease the work of HR people. Okay, and that predicts to have a qualitative impact on the organizations. And especially employee experience, because we have realized that it's not just for money. People want to have good experience in the workplace as well. They want to have a pleasant environment. They want to have a safe environment where they feel comfortable, safe. So that kind of environment, that to increase that kind of experience, a lot of research ought to be done. Okay, a lot of experimental research also. In experimental research, I'll talk about this in detail. A lot of different sorts of experiments have to be done, research have to be done to analyze the experience that employee undergoes in a particular organization. Some believe in autocratic form of method, some believe it should be democratic method, some disagree that democratic form of environment, of course, will please the employees, but the productivity will decrease. Very interesting. This kind of discussion keeps going on time and again. And they compare private sector with government sectors, which is a very interesting debate and very interesting discussion. So yes, employee experience plays a major role. They want to develop a sense of belonging to the organization, like create a family environment wherein they feel that yes, we are part of this. Many people have tried it. For example, Sahara used to try it. Things didn't work in some ways. Yeah, many companies have been trying to develop this kind of family environment so that the dropout will reduce. As we are having now, the virtual reality training is a whole new world in itself, and it was peaking, but now after pandemic, it's really shot up. A lot of investment being done into virtual reality training. It so happens sometimes that virtual training becomes much more interesting than reality. What I mean is there is immersive learning techniques have come in now, so that you use all different kinds of audiovisual aids to train people. The best example is one of the students when I was teaching in London. One of the students, we used it's sort of a kind of a video game, and it creates artificial reality. It's so wonderful, it's so unbelievable with all sound effects and all 3D 4D images, that when the student actually went to see the Pyramid of Giza, the student found that what he saw in the classroom was much more interesting, which is sad actually, which is not, because the Pyramid of Giza is fantastic, but it's very warm. Egypt is a very warm place, because this person sat in the class in AC and saw everything in 3D with the audio-visual effect. He found the reality not as interesting as the virtual immersive learning. But immersive learning is popular at the moment. It's a lot of investment being done in this area for research in immersive learning, because people are working from home. Home has become the new workplace, whether they like it or not. The companies have also realized that organizations have realized that they can save a lot of money that way as well. And people can save time commuting, especially in metropolitan cities. They can save a lot of time from commuting, and that can help them a lot. So they are trying to make virtual learning as efficient as possible. Okay, it's going on at the moment. As I just mentioned, remote work, it is set to provide more flexibility. Some people enjoy working at home. Some people can't wait to get out of home. So yeah, remote working has had its positives as well as negatives. But yeah, as I said, you can save fuel if you're a climate activist, climate change is a serious issue. So no more congestions, traffics, if everyone wants to work from home. Office spaces can be reduced. You can save a lot of money there as well. A lot of budgeting can be done. Okay. As you said, many surveys have been conducted. For example, Flex Jobs survey in 2019 noted that 69% of workers felt that it was flexible to have work from home option. So they preferred to go to companies which provided work from home options. And if you look at this here, 80% responded saying that they would be more loyal to their employer if they were given flexible work options. Because people have their requirements, their needs, they'll have their emergencies. So flexible work options, if provided by companies, the survey says that the employees would prefer such employers more who would provide flexible work options. So the idea of working from 9 to 5, that culture changes. You see, people who are used to saying that no, the work is from 10 to 5 or 9 to 5 or something as such, we have to be prepared to break away from that form of work culture. What is this power skills? Power skills, new soft skills are the new power skills. Because as I was mentioning in the beginning, people may have a lot of knowledge, especially people coming from rural areas will have a lot of knowledge, very creative, they'll be fantastic, but many a times they lack in soft skills. They won't be able to express their ideas because they haven't been speaking in the language in which they want to present on stage. Okay, that's why I always tell my students, you practice in the language in which you want to present on stage. If you want to present in Kannada, fantastic, you improve your Kannada, improve your vocabulary. If you want to present in English, you please speak in English in the environment, in the casual environment, so that when you come on stage, it will be much easier for you to practice. As I always tell, you talk what I walk and you practice what you teach. So we can't just switch on our soft skills artificially when we go on stage. We have to live it every day in our life. It should become part of our life. Only then it'll be much easier. Simple action as excusing yourself when you sneeze. Simple things. These small things come together to make us better human beings. There is no one particular software which we can install and make us all better human beings. These small things come together to make us better. So things like problem solving, critical thinking, especially critical thinking. I keep speaking a lot about this in my lectures. Critical thinking skills are very essential. In many of my faculty development programs, or when I go to address students in their induction program or orientation program, I always tell them, I show them things which they believe to be true and they've never questioned, and I burst their myths. Okay, simple things like bats are blind, bulls hate the color red. I show them myths which they have believed all their life, and even after all the education they have got, they've never stopped believing in those myths. So our education have to demythalize the mytholized philosophies. Myths have to be broken, which are untrue, scientifically untrue, and we have to develop that form of critical thinking among our students, so that when they are asked to wear masks during pandemic, many people refused to wear masks. They were so arrogant. They said that no, nothing will happen to us. We are physically very strong. No virus can attack us, and they faced grave consequences because of that. And it affected others as well. So that attitude, it's crucial. It only comes when you have critical thinking. If you stop questioning things, because someone may be a wonderful human being. There are many great scholars who have done wonderful research, but later their research was challenged. For example, Einstein didn't believe in string theories. Einstein didn't believe in quantum mechanics, quantum theory, but quantum mechanics is doing well now. Okay, that doesn't mean Einstein was not a good researcher. It means things improve. Standing on the shoulders of Einstein, we are trying to improve. We are trying to make ourselves better. So just because Einstein didn't believe it, so I'll never believe it. That kind of psychophancy, that kind of never questioning, it creates bubbles. It creates stagnant water which stings, in our brain. So we stop questioning such things. So critical thinking is crucial. So we have to learn, unlearn, question, re-question. This process has to continuously go on. So that's what power skills require, because you have to think on your feet now in the business world. You have to think on your feet. You have to make quick decisions, and for that you won't get years and months to think. Okay, fraction of second, what we call quantum thinking. So critical thinking, problem solving abilities, and communication skills, these, and agility to learning agility. You have to be very agile. What do you mean when I say agile? You have to be strong but very flexible. For example, basketball, a sport called basketball, needs different skills as opposed to weightlifting. In weightlifting, your muscles become very rigid. Whereas if you play a sport like basketball, you have to be strong, but at the same time, you have to be extremely flexible and agile, like badminton. Okay, so that kind of, our brain ought to be trained in that manner. Okay, that's power skills. I can't stress this enough. This is extremely important, because a person who has agile learning abilities can survive anywhere in the world, can go to any organization and thrive. If you have problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, and they don't always come up in your mark sheets. So our students they're very good at taking tests, wonderful scores, but when they're asked to think on their feet and try to solve a problem, suddenly many of them don't perform as well as they have as it shows in the report card. Okay, so that needs to be improved. As we know, I was talking about before, there are different forms of organizational setups. There's autocratic, there is custodial, there is supportive, and there is collegial. Different organizations have their own forms. For example, many traditional organizations who are not ready to shift, not ready to change, they believe in autocratic method. For example, our army works in this manner because you have to follow orders. You can't question why. Classroom is very different. For example, our classrooms are very democratic. In classrooms, our classrooms are supposed to be very democratic. Teacher is supposed to be a facilitator, saying that, asking students to question, re-question, and question the answers as well. That's the kind of environment we expect in our classroom, democratic environment. Whereas we can't do that. When a general says fire at the border in the army, we can't ask students to say, oh, let's have a philosophical discussion why I should fire. No, the enemy is at the front. You have to. So that's a different environment. Okay, so I like democratic environment. I like flexible environment where it's family oriented, but depends on the requirements and needs of an organization, how they have to update. If you have to attract the employees, if you want your employees to have a warm feeling towards you, then I think a democratic environment would be much better. As I said, supportive or collegial would be much better. But as I said, autocratic depends on power, authority. You have all studied, many of you might know this. If you don't, please glance at this. Autocratic has its own strengths and weaknesses. Custodial also has its own strengths and weaknesses, and so on and so forth for supportive and collegial as well. How has this evolved? classical views. It goes back to classical liberalism. Adam Smith, if you haven't read Wealth of Nations, you have to please do. Adam Smith presents wonderful ideas in his book Wealth of Nations. He introduces the invisible hand, fantastic idea for economics. Division of labor also, which has strengths, which also has weaknesses. So classical liberal views, it's called, if you haven't heard, it's called Wilhelm von Humboldt was the principal proponent of classical liberalism. Wilhelm von Humboldt, Humboldt, Wilhelm von Humboldt. He has written a wonderful book called Limits of State Action. You have to must read. So that's classical liberal views. Okay, more centralized. Bureaucracy later, 1900s, Max Weber, all these people came in. Then you have scientific. You started looking at management in a scientific perspective. Scientists hate this. Scientists don't like everything to be called science. In fact, scientists have very narrow view of what is science. I met one of the scientists was great scientists. He used to always tell me that physics is the only science. Mathematics is not science. Mathematics is the language of science. He didn't even accept that chemistry was a science. So very interesting. Scientists have very narrow view of what is science. So calling management as a science, scientists would hate it, but nonetheless, there is scientific management. Okay, looking at management through a scientific perspective. As you know, many different departments contribute to it. That's why I say it's very multidisciplinary. You have psychology, social psychology, you have sociology, anthropology. It's a sad state that many universities don't have the department of anthropology now. Very important department. Phenomenal studies go on there, but students, since they've been only fed with this idea that the only departments they have are medical, engineering, it's quite shocking. That parents are like, oh, your child didn't get into medicine. Oh, what a tragedy. Oh, she went into commerce. Oh, okay. You didn't get into commerce, also you went into engineering. That's really sad. Not even engineering, you joined arts, as if the art students have to commit suicide. That's the kind of discussion which goes on. Unfortunately, there are wonderful departments. There are departments such as doing wonderful epistemological studies, wonderful ontological studies, wonderful other departments are there. We have to introduce our students to these departments because they're extremely important, like linguistics. Okay, the Department of Linguistics is in MA English paper. Okay, people who study MA in English, they study linguistics, but linguistics is the science of language. And using linguistics, people in the Department of Cognitive Sciences, Psychology, and Philosophy of Mind are trying to make a better sense of human brain. Where is human brain? Where is literature, English, Department of English? So compartmentalization of knowledge doesn't really exist. We can only hold it superficially. The demarcation problem is there, but we can only hold it superficially. All the departments contribute to each other in different ways. As you can see here, behavioral sciences, if you want to study about behavioral aspects, then you go into psychology, sociology, social psychology, as well as anthropology. All these different departments contribute in their own way. I've given in what way they contribute also. It's been given here clearly. If we don't have these aspects, if we don't understand these aspects, okay, and don't develop the power skills, what happens? You are employed in a particular place. They ask you, can you work under pressure? And they say, yeah, I can work under pressure. I'm under pressure, I thrive. And after 3 months, this will be a condition. If you don't have the skills that we discussed, and if you're not updated, if they're not upskilled, okay, if they're not introduced to things like AI, machine learning, latest aspects coming in, just breaking your head to the wall won't work. Okay, in 3 months they'll end up becoming like this, and we don't want that to happen. That's why we need aspects of ethics as well, which is extremely important. What is axiology? I've always heard people talking about axiology. Axiology is a department which studies about value theories. Okay, it studies about value theories, moral theories, all these things. Under axiology comes the department of moral philosophy. Under axiology comes the department of moral philosophy. Okay, in moral philosophy you have ethics, so on and so forth. What is moral philosophy? Moral philosophy doesn't say you have to do this, you have to do that. In moral philosophy studies things like what is good. How can you say something is good as opposed to something else? These are the kinds of things which moral philosophy study. For example, if someone says what is a good life, okay, when I went to the University of Edinburgh for the first time, I wrote a research paper. I used the word good. My professor underlined the word good and asked me what is good. Okay, I was shocked. Here I am trying to study in leading university in the world, and this person is asking me what is good. Good is good. That's how I had thought. But then when I went home and Googled, I realized there is a whole department which just studies what is good. It's quite unbelievable. Okay, so moral philosophy studies what is good. Okay, what's a good life. So initially we believed only what our elders say or parents say is good. Now we know there are thousands of years of research of studying what is good. Very interesting. If you like such things, look it up. Study moral philosophy. Fascinating aspect. Ethics is like a child of moral philosophy. Ethics doesn't study what is good, what is a good life. Ethics doesn't study all that. Ethics says you have 10 choices, which is better. You have 10 choices prevailing at hand, which do you think is better? That's the kind of thing ethics studies. Okay. All those 10 choices may not be moral. Okay, so there is a difference between morals. What is morals? A society or a group of people, they develop certain code of conduct which they believe to be good code of conduct. Okay, that is moral. Okay, there is a difference between morals, ethics, and values. We can't use them synonymously. Okay, there is a difference between morals, values, and ethics. We can't use them synonymously, as I was telling. What is ethics? If you go to an organizational setting, they have their own code of conduct, okay, which is very different from what society has. Okay, so those aspects which are research oriented, a lot of research being done in that area. There are different, I'll introduce you to what is being done, what are the different departments in that as well. That is ethics. Okay, it's not similar to morals. If you look at it carefully, what is morality? Society's rules of conduct, what people ought not to do in various situations. Okay, that's morality. Whereas ethic, it's a rational evaluation of morality, evaluation of people's behavior. So there are two different things, as you can see clearly. If you look at this, you can see the difference between ethics and values. For example, what is ethical may not be what I value. What I value may be different. For example, someone might say it's ethical to go to work on time. However, for example, if my mom is not feeling well, I value my mom more. So my value system suggests that I spend more time with my mom than go to work on time. So there is a clash, as you can see. It's not black and white. That's why ethics, moral philosophy, extremely complicated and a wonderful department. Unfortunate that not many of our students study moral philosophy, business ethics. They should do so because it's unbelievable. It forms the foundation of everything. Based on the foundation of moral philosophy and ethics, we have education based on, because we educate our students based on these aspects, we want them to have certain value systems, certain code of conduct, certain ethics. And we want such people to become citizens and then become our leaders and politicians. It's the other way around. People who have such values, if they become politicians, then the society will be better. That's the value system, the pyramid. At the bottom is moral philosophy, then education to develop those aspects, and finally, such people would lead. Would go into politics, study political philosophy, which is an interesting department. So, what is ethics? As I said, ethics is very rigorous, research-oriented, evidence-based principles. Okay, value is very personal. What I value as opposed to what you value. Okay, we both may value different things, but when you work in a particular organization, we have to stick to the organizational ethics. Okay, an organization, and we have to stick to it. There may be clashes. As I said, our personal value system may collide with the ethical principles of a particular organization. That time we may have issues. But it is important for us to know the difference between ethics, values, and morals. I won't go through in detail because we have discussed about this. Ethics is what we are going to stick to. So ethics has different departments such as meta-ethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. Okay, meta-ethics, what does it do? As the name itself says, metaphysics, beyond physics. Okay, can there be something beyond physics? Immanuel Kant, a famous philosopher, says yes, there can be something beyond physics. So he argues there can be knowledge without experience. Many senior professors would disagree. Many young professors would say yes, yes, I agree. So yeah, meta-ethics, it tries to understand the metaphysical, the epistemological, semantic, and psychological presuppositions and commitments of moral thought, talk, and practice. What kind of questions meta-ethics deals with? I'll just brush it up soon and then enter into what we need also. Meta-ethics raises questions, tries to understand questions such as where our ethical principles come from, what do they mean, are they merely social inventions, are they all subjective, with just social invention, is there any objectivity to it, do they involve more expressions, such questions. Are there moral facts? See, look at the question, so fascinating. Are there moral facts? Very interesting question. So such things are discussed in meta-ethics. If you look at it carefully, meta-ethics is further divided into cognitivism, non-cognitivism, so on and so forth. It's a whole world in itself, a fascinating world, I must say. Okay, fascinating world. Normative ethics is where all the theories come in. Okay, what does normative ethics do? It is interested in determining the content of moral behavior. It provides ethical theories based on which we can take action. Ethical theories are like guidebooks which help us take proper ethical action. So procedures for answering the practical questions. What are the practical questions? What I ought to do. In this situation, what I ought to do. Kinds of moral questions are raised in normative ethics. Difference between meta-ethics, normative ethics, just a little bit. Focuses on what is morality, focuses on what is moral. Okay, it's connected to philosophy and it analyzes fundamental ethical concepts, whereas normative ethics more practical as it applies to basic human behavior. Okay, so this will give you an idea about difference between meta-ethics and normative ethics, although they are important. Without this understanding, you can't develop a better, without understanding of meta-ethics, we can't develop a better understanding of normative ethics. There are various normative ethical theories. Consequentialism is there, deontological ethics is there, categorical imperative, virtue ethics, ethics of care, natural law, social contract theory, and John Rawls' theory of justice. What is utilitarianism? Utilitarianism was introduced by John Stuart Mill and Jeremy Bentham, which focuses on maximizing benefit and minimizing pain. Maximizing benefits and minimizing gains. Okay? For example, if you have to build a flyover, because flyover eases congestion, okay, reduces traffic, so you demolish the houses there, provide them compensation elsewhere because you think flyover would help many more people. Okay, that's a utilitarian decision. Maximizing benefit, minimizing losses, maximizing pleasure, minimizing pain. Okay, but all these theories, they are not perfect. As I told you before, when David Hume and Newton had argument, I mentioned this. We are trying to develop theories to get closer to perfection, but we are not perfect. We don't understand thoroughly. Just think about it. If we would have understood human brain clearly, if we knew from which part of the human brain violence comes in, okay, and if you would have medicated that part of the brain where violence erupts, there would be no wars and battles in the world because no violence at all. But it is easier said than done. It's not that simple. That's why we have different ethical theories. Our law, our judiciary is based on such ethical theories. Okay, we have a department called jurisprudence in the philosophy of law. It's philosophy of law. Based on the philosophy of law, judges provide decisions. They provide their verdicts. Okay, they have to go through jurisprudence in detail, pushing the limits of philosophy of law. So they also use these ethical theories. I have some interesting clips. I would see if it would open and if it would be visible clearly, then we can watch it. Till then, I'll go on explaining. See, there is something called deontological ethics. What is deontological ethics? Deontological ethics was introduced by Immanuel Kant. It's called categorical imperative as well. Immanuel Kant, a famous German philosopher, introduced deontological ethics. What is deontological ethics? Till the video comes up, I'll keep telling, I'll keep explaining. I don't want to waste time. Deontological ethics says it doesn't talk about maximizing benefit and minimizing pain and so on and so forth. Deontological. Just a second, please. I'm sorry. And I'm working on it for about. Okay, deontological ethics says it's a set of rules. If you break the signal, you should imagine everyone in the world breaking the signal. If it is acceptable to you, you do it. Otherwise, you don't. That's deontological ethics. It's simple set of principles, simple set of rules. If you lie, you should imagine everybody in the world lying. If you don't want everyone in the world to lie, then you also don't lie. Sounds very good, sounds very simple, but it also has problems. Oh, sir, how can you say that? Imagine, for example, someone comes to your home and says, look, I want to attack your brother. Where is he? If deontological ethics says you should not lie. If you lie, everyone in the world, you should imagine everyone in the world lying. So obviously you'll say that, look, my brother is inside. Why don't you go and attack him? Then it will lead to disaster. So deontological ethics, although sounds simple, has problems as well. Utilitarian ethics sounds very good, maximizing benefits, minimizing losses, but that also has problems. What does it do? It ignores minorities. Minorities' rights are ignored. Majority, it only focuses on majoritarianism because it wants to provide maximum pleasure to majority. Okay, so minorities are ignored in utilitarianism. Okay, so all these theories have strengths and weaknesses. Let's look at utilitarianism. Small clip, a minute clips, just to break the monotony of my voice, and it will give you a different perspective. Is the video visible?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sir, audio is not there. Video is visible.
Oh, it's not audible, is it?
It's not audible.
Okay, I'll try to increase the volume.
No, sir. Still, it is not audible.
Okay, I'll explain.
Okay.
Let them watch. I think you can see the subtitles.
Yeah.
You can see the subtitles, isn't it?
Yes, sir. We can see the subtitles. Sir, video is closed. Sir. Number ಬರೆಯಲ್ಲ ಆ ಕಡೆ. Live. పురాకథల్లో వాడాలి. ಇದು ರನ್ ಮಾಡೋಕೆ ಗದ್ದಲ ಮಾಡಿದ್ ನೋಡಿ, ತುಂಬ ಬರೋಬ್ಬರ ನಡೆದಿತ್ತು. Hello, participants, can you listen to me? Anybody can respond?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, sir. Audible now.
I think the presenter has got some problem. I'm calling him. So immediately after that, we'll resume the session.
Sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye. Can you hear me now?
Sagar sir.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. But I think there was some problem with that video.
Yes, I think there was some problem with the network. I suddenly dropped out. This is the first time it has happened to me.
Yeah.
Sorry for the trouble. We'll get back to action.
It's always a little bit difficult to play videos in these presentations. They will create some problems always.
Okay. It used to be very smooth for me as of now. This is the first time it has happened. I'll make it work thoroughly.
Okay, no problem. So all participants, please switch off your videos because it will take a lot of bandwidth. So I request all the participants to switch off your videos.
Am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, let's try this. If it doesn't work, I won't trouble you again. Okay, let's see whether the volume will be clearly audible. It has subtitles, so don't worry, it has subtitles as well. If there's anything, I'll explain it again.
No, sir, it is not audible, but subtitles are there.
Okay, I'll explain. As they are trying to say, utilitarianism, it maximizes the benefit, as you can see, minimizes pain, but at the same time, as you can see, it ignores the minority. It is good for the greatest number. It tries to focus on the greatest good for the greatest number. As they are saying, it is the most common approach to moral reasoning. Most of the political decision, I must say almost 80 to 90% of the political decisions usually are made using utilitarianism. Okay, so most of the political decisions are usually utilitarian. And it's also usually used in business because it accounts for costs and benefits. So it's a very interesting thought experiment here if you pay attention. See, there are 4 people in the hospital bed. They're dying of different ailments. They're dying of different issues. Imagine one of them has heart problem, liver problem, kidney problem, all 4 of them. So different problems. So they need organ transplant. If a healthy person walks into the hospital, imagine if you're a doctor and you have to make a decision. If you kill the healthy person walking into the hospital and take his organs out, you can save all these 4 people. Okay, you can save 4 people, only 1 person will die. Will you do it? That's the kind of ethical dilemma comes in. Because according to utilitarianism, you have to maximize benefit, minimize losses. So that way it seems ethical. See, that's the problem. That's why we conduct thought experiments. Thought experiments are very important. Why do we need thought experiments? Because in the laboratory, we can't control the environment and do experiments on society the way we do it in the laboratory. So we conduct thought experiments so that it extrapolates a given problem and gives us a better perspective. Okay. His organs could be harvested to save 4 lives instead of 1, but because it is good for greatest number according to utilitarianism, but no one would do it. No one would accept it to be ethical. So as I was telling, they have limitations. Okay, these theories have limitations. Deontological ethics, I have explained. If you, it's simple rules. It's very easy to follow, because if you do something wrong, you should imagine everybody in the world doing the same wrong thing. So if you don't want everyone to do it, then you also don't do it. Okay, seems very simple, but as I denoted before, it creates problems as well. Virtue ethics, I have some clips for this, but I'll skip it for now. I'll just explain it. Virtue ethics, fascinating theory. Virtue ethics was first propagated by Aristotle, a famous philosopher, ancient Greece. He wrote a book called Nicomachean Ethics. Aristotle wrote a wonderful book called Nicomachean Ethics. You have to read it. It's fantastic. Many modern philosophers also have introduced this. Deontological ethics, Immanuel Kant. Consequentialism, Jamie Bentham, John Stuart Mill, and many other modern utilitarian philosophers. Virtue ethics, Aristotle, principal proponent, and then other people have come in. I'll name them. What is then virtue ethics? Virtue ethics doesn't give any rules as such. Virtue ethics says that you have to develop moral principles among people. How? And they say values should not be taught, they should be caught. Means by demonstrating examples of virtuous behavior, these virtues will be developed among individuals. So virtuous individuals will lead a virtuous life, leading towards, they call it eudaimonia. It's an ancient Greek word. Eudaimonia means flourishing life. Okay, individuals being the best that they could be. Okay? There is a very famous modern philosopher on virtue ethics. Her name is Martha Nussbaum. She was one of the wives of Amartya Sen. If you remember Amartya Sen, Indian Nobel laureate, one of his wives, I think third or fourth wife. Martha Nussbaum has written a wonderful book called Fragility of Goodness. Must read book, Fragility of Goodness. You have a wonderful book on virtue ethics, fantastic read also. You must read. These are must-read books in the world. Okay, so virtue ethics. They don't give principles like consequentialism or deontological ethics, but virtue ethics denotes that if you develop virtues among individuals, then such individuals will lead a virtuous life. You can't expect such individuals to do anything wrong. So virtue ethics kind of focuses more on education, developing virtues among individuals. Such individuals moving towards eudaimonia means flourishing life. Then you have ethics of care, natural law, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, natural law as well as social contract theory. Rousseau wrote a famous book called Social Contract. Based on his theories, they have developed natural law as well as social contract theory. Natural law also has John Locke, another famous philosopher called John Locke. And the final one, Rawls' theory of justice. This last one is also extremely important because it has revived political philosophy as well. John Rawls has written a famous book called Theory of Justice. Hence, Rawls' theory of justice is in every department now. It is being used in one way or another in all different departments. His name is John Rawls. As you can see, the three different theories which I explained, deontological ethics, consequentialist, and virtue ethics. They have their own strengths, they have their weaknesses, as I was talking about. So, deontological ethics has its own definition of what is good. According to deontological ethics, fulfillment or discharge of moral obligation is ethical. What does it focus on? It focuses on responsibility, intention, and duty. And what are the strengths of deontological ethics? It avoids overly demanding aspects. It accounts for cross-cultural and moral institutions, so on and so forth. But what are its weaknesses? The weaknesses are possible conflicts between different duties and rights. Outcome blind. I'll give some thought experiments also to explain this in detail. Even similarly, consequentialist also has to promote best outcomes is the goal of consequentialist, but it focuses on consequences and outcomes. Okay, and virtue ethics, as I said, eudaimonia, flourishing, and it focuses on individual character and well-being. It focuses on something called phronesis. What is phronesis? It's developing practical wisdom. Developing practical wisdom is called phronesis. So virtue ethics focuses on developing phronesis. Okay, so they all have strengths and weaknesses. Just another utilitarianism, Immanuel Kant's ethics, deontological, virtue ethics, Aristotle's moral theory. What is the abstract description of this? An action is right if it promotes the best consequences, according to utilitarianism. What about Kantian ethics? An action is right if it is in accordance with a moral rule or principle, that is deontological. What about virtue ethics? An action is right if it is what a virtuous agent would do in these circumstances. I think that should be enough. I don't want to keep hammering it home, but as I said, they all have differences. They have pros and cons. I have explained it here. Greatest good for the greatest number of people. Deontology, the idea that people should be treated with dignity and respect. Virtue ethics, considering what virtues make a good public relations professionals. They all have positives as well as negatives. That's why, you see, it's so important to open our mind before we open our mouth, because who knew when we were in school and all that, if somebody, we had textbook called, what do they say? Moral science. That also was science. They used to call moral science, and they used to have stories in it. Okay, but we never were exposed to all these different kinds of moral philosophies, moral theories. We didn't know that such rigorous research takes place in these departments. Even when the problem of abortion came in, a crucial problem when women needed abortion, when it was crucial, many intellectuals had wonderful debates whether it should be legalized or not. Fascinating, and moral philosophy played a major role in that. That's why it's important for us to open our mind before we open our mouth. We ought to know that there are such departments, such researches take place regularly. It is not black and white. It is not as simple as it seems. Okay. Look at this. This is some thought experiment which helps explain my point and hammer it home. There is a thought experiment called the Ring of Gyges. Okay. It's like Mr. India. There was a movie called Mr. India. It's like that. No, that was a watch. There's a. I didn't know that this is an old ancient thought experiment. I thought Mr. India was like original. Okay, but yeah, this thought experiment says that imagine you had a ring and it would make you invisible. Would you use that ring? Okay, and it's interesting if you do this in the class and see the reaction. How many students say that they would use it? How many would say they would not use it? Why? What reason? What rationale they would give to use it and to not use it? That will be very interesting to think about. Okay, if you look, if you're interested in such thought experiments, please look it up in detail. It's very interesting to see. As I said, would you use it? Would there be limits on to use it? Why not use it to satisfy your every desire, gain power, crush your enemies? Would you use it? Will it be very interesting to know? Okay, what would you do? Then you have something called trolley problem. Very interesting thought experiment, trolley problem. I'll try to play this. I hope the video, the audio comes up. If not, I'll explain. But it's an interesting thought experiment. Imagine a train coming down the track. Okay, you just watch it. I'll explain later. So a runaway train is heading towards 5 workers who are working on the railway track. Okay. So there is no way of warning them that a train is coming down the track. There is no way of warning them, but you're standing next to a lever. Okay, you're standing next to a lever. So if you switch the lever, the train changes the track. Okay, it's called trolley problem. Very interesting thought experiment. So train coming down the track, people are working there. Okay, if you no way to warn them, runaway train. If you pull the lever, the train changes the track. But there is another worker on that track as well. So if you don't do anything, these people will die. If you pull the lever, the train changes the track and this person dies. What will you do? Thought experiment. Utilitarianism says save 5 people here. You pull the lever, you sacrifice 1 person and you will save 5 people. That's a utilitarian decision. Okay, this, if the train comes this way, if you pull the lever, it will be an utilitarian decision, but this person will die. So thought experiments will help you understand how complicated moral decisions are. Some of you might be thinking, sir, we'll pull the chain in the train. Sir, we'll run before the train like Hulk, we'll lift the train. We can't do. This is a thought experiment and the variables are controlled. You have only one, either to pull the lever or stand and watch 5 people being killed. So very interesting to think. If you stand and watch 5 people being killed, you'll be guilty of not doing anything. If you pull the lever, then you'll be guilty of personally being responsible for this person's death. Very interesting to think that thought experiments are not black and white. It's not like a movie where there is Amrish Puri and there is one hero, or like in Kannada where there is Vajramani and there is another hero. It's not like that. It's not black and white. They're extremely complicated. So some people think it's good to sacrifice, as you can see, what is written. Some people think it's good to switch, sacrifice 1, save 5. Okay. When I gave this thought experiment in the class, not just in India, in other places, many people said pulling the lever is okay. But you see in this thought experiment here, you can't pull the lever. Here, the train can only be stopped by pushing this hefty person from a bridge. If you push, then the person falls on the track, the train stops. Hypothetical, that's the thought experiment. And many people, when I said push somebody to stop the train, they said no, they won't do it. But pulling the lever, they said it was okay. Why? Here also one person dies, there also one person dies, but when it came to personal contact of pushing an individual, many people said no. So human behavior and tendency is very interesting. Here also one person dies, but no personal contact. You just pull the lever. So it's like, okay, like that's why I think many drone attacks, people are okay with drones killing people, whereas physically attacking and killing someone seems very gruesome. So very interesting to think. Yeah. So both thought experiments are sacrificing one person as opposed to five. But when it came to personal contact, people say no. And when it comes to pulling the lever, people say yes. So what is this trying to say? Moral decision, is it just an outcome or the way we achieve those outcomes? For example, Swami Vivekananda had written a very good prose. Swami Vivekananda used to say, ends matter as much as means. Means also are important, not just ends. Means and ends, both are important. So what do you think about that? So these are all food for thought. Mind is like a parachute. It doesn't function unless it opens. So when we introduce you to all these things, you have to go up and look these up in detail. And this is a continuous process. As we say, Rome was not built in a day. You can't become a master of moral philosophy or ethics in one particular day. It is a continuous process. We go deeper into our own moral conscience. For example, the way we used to treat women in the past, we don't do that now. Why? Because we have understood, we have become more educated, our moral principles have improved. So in general, how women's rights have improved as opposed to how it was 50 years ago. Okay, so this is how, because of such research and being done, feminism also has played a role. That's how things change. As you can see here, some people say Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, some people say consequences matter. In the end, one person dies, 5 people are saved. So consequences. So the question which they leave us with in the video is, some people say they won't push, no personal contact, but they pull the lever. Are these people inconsistent, or are they on to something? Are they saying something, pointing towards something? What is it they are saying about? Something for us to think. So that's a thought experiment about trolley problem. Okay, this is another interesting thought experiment. I have a clip, but I won't play the clip. I'll discuss with you. Peter Singer, drowning child. Very interesting thought experiment. Very famous Australian philosopher. His name is Peter Singer. Please look him up. Very good. Peter Singer says, imagine you're a great university professor. You're walking down the lane. You are wearing a very expensive shoes. I don't have to tell this now. It's available in India. If you go to Bangalore, Kingfisher Mall, there is a mall there, shopping mall. If you go to this Kingfisher Mall, you will find Louis Vuitton in India. Okay, and one pair of sneakers would cost you, one pair of shoes would cost 5 to 6 lakhs. Yeah, I'm not kidding. 5 to 6 lakhs for one pair of shoes. Okay. You're a great university professor and you are wearing Louis Vuitton shoes and you're walking on the bridge. You see a child drowning. You're wearing 4 lakh shoes. You're walking on a bridge. You see a child drowning. You're a very good swimmer. You can easily save the child, but you have no time to remove your shoe and jump. So you jump into the water, you save the child, okay, but your shoes are gone. Okay, Peter Singer says your shoes are spoiled, but you would not even hesitate. When you see a child drowning, you would not hesitate. You would not say, oh, 4 lakh shoes, I won't jump. You'll jump and save the child. However, when somebody says a child is dying in Africa due to malnutrition and all the child needs is 40 rupees per day, people would think 100 times to send money to Africa. Why? No, that's the thought experiment. When you see a child drowning, you are wearing 4 lakh shoe, but you jump and you save the child. Basically, you wasted 4 lakhs, but you saved a child, which is very good. But when somebody says a child in Africa is dying of malnutrition and they ask you to send 40 rupees, people won't send. Is it because, why? He asks that question, why? Is it because people think the money won't go there? And he goes on explaining it in detail. He says, imagine your friends have gone to Africa and they are in trouble. And if they ask money, you would send the money to Africa. Said, look, I'm in Africa, I'm in trouble, send money, you would send some money. Then you won't think whether the money would reach them or not. So he gives this thought experiment and makes us think because when the World Trade Center was attacked, 3,000 people tragically died. But after a few days, United Nations released a report saying that 3,000 children in the world are dying of malnutrition every single day. Every single day without food. which is quite shocking in itself. So this disparity, when we see something happening, we do something. Is it because we don't see it, we believe it is not happening? It's like climate change. You don't see it every day, so you don't really understand what is climate change. When they say, well, United Nations have now given code red for humanity, they say it's code red for humanity, especially when it comes to climate change. Quite shocking. You should look at the new IPCC report. What is IPCC? Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, not IPCC Penal Code in law. It is Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. Scientists from all around the world have come together to form this committee. Very interesting. Great scientists. Great scientists in this committee presented an important report on behalf of United Nations. Please look it up. They have given a number called 1.5 degrees. They said that if the global temperature goes above 1.5 degrees, there will be reactions which can't be undone. Intensity of tornadoes, cyclones, hurricanes will increase, untimely rain, so on and so forth. I won't explain in detail because I'm talking about ethics. That's why I said things which happen. Human beings are trained to deal with actions which happen immediately, suddenly, but we are not trained to foresee the problems which are coming. That foresight is needed now more than ever. Okay. So I spoke about John Rawls and his book of Theory of Justice, very important. He introduces these terms called veil of ignorance. What does it mean? Imagine if you don't know which part of the society you would be born in. If you don't know whether you would end up being a boy or a girl. If you don't know which community you will be born in, then what kind of society will you create? That's the question he asks. If you don't know which community you belong to, if you don't know whether you're a man or a woman, if you don't know any of such certain things, or it's called original position, he calls it original position. If you are behind veil of ignorance, what kind of society would you like to create? Then he introduces original position, difference principles, so on and so forth. Very interesting theory. You have to read. Look, veil of ignorance. You don't know which part of society you would end up in. So what kind of society would you create? Very interesting theory he gives. See, original position, you have a veil of ignorance, you don't know whether you're physically challenged, you don't know all these kinds of, whether you'll be rich or poor, you don't know. So how will you create? That's the kind of things. Okay, then you have applied ethics. Okay, applied ethics deals with questions such as under what conditions is an abortion normally morally permissible, so on and so forth. Does a citizen have a moral obligation to actively participate in democratic process? For example, does a citizen have to vote? What are the obligations? So applied ethics, as you know, deals with more urgent aspects. So under applied ethics, we have things like medical, business ethics, bioethics, moral standing and personhood, professional ethics, engineering ethics, social ethics, distributive justice, and environmental ethics. All these come under applied ethics. So I introduced you to a lot of different theories today: meta-ethics, normative ethics, applied ethics, different theories, utilitarianism, virtue ethics, deontological ethics, John Rawls's theory of justice, all these different aspects. I introduced you to thought experiments by Peter Singer, experiment, ring of Gyges, as well as we dealt with trolley problems, okay, by Philippa Foot, another philosopher. See, evaluate facts. All ethics, what do we do? Evaluate facts, identify the applicable codes and sanctions, think about the conflict present at hand, compare different options. What are the different principles available? Here we apply all the theories, if you remember, and then select the best option under the circumstances. See, remember I told you this right in the beginning, brain/mind. I had kept it here, the slide. We are not able to remove this. Otherwise, we would have developed a better understanding about human nature, but all the human research, we have not been able to just remove this. We don't know brain, mind. Still, we have to write like this in every research paper. Just like how you write he/she. I feel it's better to use just she instead of writing he/she. You can say a few words. Amartya Sen says that in his book Argumentative Indian. He says, for thousands of years we have been writing men and women as men. For the next 1,000 years I'll write men and women as women, he says. So in all his books he writes only she. It denotes as she pronoun. So you can use here also. We are not here, we can't use that. Here we have to use brain/mind. Why people behave unethically, people ought to know. In HR and organizational behavior, there may be different reasons why people do what they do. Maybe stress, maybe family problems, maybe parenting wasn't good, they're not brought up, maybe societal norms, maybe peer pressure, because of the power structure they're compelled to do so. They have this theory of gain wealth, forgetting all but self, or maybe their personal values are like that, or maybe their loyalty is misplaced. All these reasons may be part of why people might behave ethically. Other than that, there are, as I was telling, it's not black and white, there are conflicts. There are good ethical conflicts which happen all the time. For example, autonomy versus beneficence is an ethical conflict. You can't focus only on beneficence and forget autonomy. There are conflicts such as justice versus beneficence. Serious conflict again. Autonomy versus informed consent. Autonomy versus confidentiality. Beneficence versus non-maleficence. All these are valid conflicts. When these, just like trolley problem, is a moral conflict. Here, you'll be personally responsible to killing one person if you don't do anything. If you don't do anything, sorry, 5 people will die. If you pull the lever, 1 person dies. It's an ethical problem, conflict. Okay. Conflict of inaction. Here, if you don't do anything, 5 people will die. Inaction. You're not doing anything, although you can do something. But if you pull the lever, you'll be personally responsible of this person's death. Okay, who otherwise would have not died. These are real conflicts. I told you, pushing the person as opposed to stopping the train. I also explained about this. 5 people dying in the hospital, healthy person comes in. Would you take his organs out and save all these 5 people? Is just similar to liver problem. If you say, yes sir, I'll pull the lever, I'll save 5 people, sacrifice 1 person in the on the track, then here you have to kill this person and save all these 5 people, which you would not do. So that's why it's very complicated. This ideology, especially in business environment, ethical ideological belief to gain wealth, unethical, forgetting all but self, as well as profit over earthlings. Earthlings, what is the meaning of earthlings? All living organisms on planet Earth together are called earthlings. Okay, I would have made you do a lot of physical activities, which intellectually stimulating activities if I was there, so that you would be laughing, enjoying, using the basketball or something. We would have done activities so that you would have realized these ethical problems firsthand, because hands-on experience is always fantastic. Okay, so this, for example, this neoliberal policy, underfund, undermine, overtake, is quite unethical, and it creates a lot of problems. For example, government schools would not survive if you use this principle. It is being used in many places. First you deny funds, then you complain about them not being good, and then you sell it over. Okay, and this policy is being, this was brought in by Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan long ago, and even now it is thriving. In fact, it was introduced by Milton Friedman, another economist from Chicago University. Very interesting if you want to study. They did a shock treatment. They said they'll give a shock treatment to Chile's economy, and Milton Friedman sent few people to Chile from Chicago University to give shock treatment to Chile's economy. I'm not kidding. That's what they called it. What happened later, it's a very interesting study. If somebody wants to do research in that area, you'll have a lot of fascinating documents to look up to. But don't just look at the newspapers. If you want to find the truth, always look into the declassified documents of Parliament archives. That's where you'll find the facts. That's where you'll find the minutes of meeting and everything. That's a good research. Don't just go by newspapers. So unethical practices would lead to financial crisis, which happened in 2008. What happened in 2008? Subprime mortgages. You thought you were just buying home, but it was so delicate. That's why Joseph Stiglitz, a famous economist and a Nobel laureate, said, development is about transforming the lives of people, not just transforming economies. Please read about Joseph Stiglitz. He has written a wonderful book called Free Fall. Free Fall, must read. Why do we need ethics? We need ethics because if we don't have ethics, just look at the amount of fines some of these corporate companies have paid. You'll be flabbergasted, bewildered, shocked, and petrified to see the amount of fine these people have paid. If this is the fine that they have paid, imagine how much they might have made. Okay, and the losses that happen to common people who save their money. Some of the largest corporate fines, Credit Suisse, you know, they paid for tax evasion, they paid 2.8 billion. 2.88 billion. GlaxoSmithKline, you know this is a pharmaceutical company. Okay, they paid 3 billion. Goldman Sachs, very well-known company, investment banking, 5 billion. Okay, and this petroleum company paid 5.1 billion, 15 billion. Citigroup paid 7 billion, and BNP paid 8 billion. JP Morgan paid 13 billion fines. British Petroleum is highest, 20 billion fine they have paid. Why? Criminal manslaughter and environmental crimes on British Petroleum. Bank of America also 16 billion. Volkswagen, remember Volkswagen case? Volkswagen, when they cheated with their emission tests, they paid 14.7 billion fines. And Apple has, you just look at the names of the companies, Apple, Google, how much fines they have paid because of unethical practices. Intel, Qualcomm, Facebook for data breach, for selling our data without our permission, selling our data, they paid $5 billion fine. British Airways paid, Marriott International, Yahoo, Uber, as well as Equifax, 700 million following a massive data breach. Look at these food products. It's very interesting. In America, some of the food products, almost 285 or something food products which are banned in Europe, are okayed in America, United States of America, because the corporate lobbying power is so powerful there. So they're so strong that they okayed it. These food products which are considered to be harmful to health, which are banned in Europe, are okayed in USA. Whereas again in Canada, they are banned, which are very interesting. Look at the fines that these companies have paid. These are food products, by the way. Heinz, for example, they make beans, okay, beans, canned beans. Herbalife, Trident, quite shocking. So when people ask, why do we need ethics? Just look at the corporate fines that these companies have paid. Enron paid a lot of fine as well. Pharmaceutical companies which make medicine, tablets, drugs, they've paid huge amount of fine. So look at this, especially this GlaxoSmithKline failure to disclose safety data, paying kickbacks to physicians. Kickbacks to physicians. Can you imagine that they're paying physicians money to prescribe their drugs? Very interesting. Making false and misleading statements. These drug companies have paid. Pfizer has paid 2.3 billion. Johnson and Johnson. Remember Johnson and Johnson? We love it so much. Reminds us of babies' bottoms. Johnson and Johnson has paid 2.2 billion off-label promotions, kickbacks, false claims. Okay, we have to know these things, otherwise we would think everything is hunky-dory. It's not like that. India, I'll come to India also. Look at the Satyam scandal. They paid 7,200 crore fine. Chanda Kochar, oh, she was worshipped. 10 years before, when I used to go to MBA colleges, oh, everywhere I used to see Chanda Kochar's poster. They have removed it now because she is going to prison. And then Vijay Mallya, 9,000 crores fine. Nirav Modi, scam, 11,400 crore scam, and then Ketan Parekh, 1,200. That's why ethics are so important, you see. When people want to make quick buck, want to make money, they get carried away. You know, how much is enough? You have to think about that. And this has to be inculcated in our students also. We have to discuss about these things. Infosys, 800,000, you see, they have paid fine, $800,000 they have paid fine because of visa evasions, tax fraud in 2019. Again, Infosys paid $1 million fine in 2017. Okay, 34 million again to US to settle outside the court. To settle the case outside the court, they paid the fine. So you have to remember these things. Look at this. I've given if you want details, there are links also. Okay, because these people track how much fine which companies have made. There is a very good research organization which tracks this. So please look it up. All over the world they do this. So this is another, what happened, Hyatt Regency walkway collapse. Civil engineering especially, this is very important. It's a newly constructed 5-star hotel, but because they didn't follow proper ethical norms. Very interesting. I have a small clip in relation to this, but I won't play it now because it is too late. I won't take too much time because of this. The very day of opening, they had the opening ceremony. On the very day, the hotel's lobby collapsed. It crashed and it killed 114 people and injured 216. 114 people it killed because of unethical practices, which they could have easily sorted out. All it needed was an arm length nut and screw. Easily the 114 people would be alive. But because of, but since they didn't practice since they didn't practice proper norms, this happened. Okay, so why do we need, as I said, I don't think I need to explain why. To protect our society, prevent business malpractices, healthy relations with employees, improves goodwill. If you're an ethical company, then obviously it will bring in a lot of goodwill in the society. Increases customer satisfaction to protect the environment. Protection, if we don't protect the environment, okay, our children and grandchildren will not have the future that we had. They won't be able to enjoy the way we did when we were children. They won't be able to. They just won't. You look at peak oil, it's already over. If you don't know what is peak oil, please look it up. So these are tough times. And permafrost in Siberia is melting, due to which a lot of permafrost has been melted from millions of years. The air pockets which was there in that time, it's protected in these frozen ice. And since it's melting now, a lot of harmful, along with methane, a lot of other harmful aspects are being released. Even bubonic plague viruses are being released. It's been said in research. Please look it up, what United Nations is talking about this. It's not you or I, it's United Nations and their research which is talking about what is happening to permafrost. Okay, so I have a strong feeling that this won't be the last virus attacking us, like a coronavirus. There'll be a lot of other deadly viruses coming up if we continue the way we do, thinking that human beings are invincible, we can do anything we want and nature won't reply. It will be very sad state for our children and grandchildren. So like we have to be very ethical. Okay, and especially look at this here, avoid cross-cultural contradiction. People come from different backgrounds, from different communities. So when they're working in a particular environment, if they don't have a proper code of conduct, code of ethics, then there'll be cross-cultural contradictions. Okay, because people will have taboos related to particular community, particular religion, which is not good. Okay, we are all earthlings on planet Earth, Milky Way galaxy. Okay, very interesting. I always say that there are millions and billions of galaxies. One galaxy is ours. In our galaxy, there are millions of stars. One star is ours, which is sun. And the sun is so big that millions of Earth can fit into our sun. Okay, and we are just one blue floating dot next to this invincible, huge, amazing galaxy. We are one blue floating dot. In that floating dot, we have divided ourselves into countries and we are fighting amongst each other. In those countries, we have divided ourselves into states and we are saying, Huttidre Kannada Nadal Huttbeko. And in those states, we have divided ourselves into districts and we are saying this district is better, that district is better. And there is Gram Panchayati, Jilla Panchayati, they are fighting there. Where is billions of galaxies and where is one small? Think about this. It should help us understand how insignificant human life is. And all human beings coming and going on planet Earth, just like dinosaurs, all human beings coming and going on planet Earth is just a blink of an eye for the Earth. That's how large the lifespan of Earth is. Okay, so remember that. Good communication skills are important. For example, now you can't see me. I can't see you all, but just by using intonation and voice modulation, I'm trying my best to convey the message. Okay, so no matter how many grades I have, no matter how many modules I've done, no matter what, it won't work. I can't just go and stand on stage using terrible body language and say that I've studied in England. Okay, so we can't do that. So we have to improve our language. For example, I speak Hindi, Kannada and English fluently. It's up to you to learn different languages and try to reach out to your fellow Earthlings as much as possible. We are just Earthlings on planet Earth, Milky Way galaxy. Remember that. So a good sense of humor is important. If you have a sense of humor, a lot of problems can be solved. I think this is how sense of humor has evolved along with human beings. Okay, it's important to have a good sense of humor. Otherwise, what it does, you see, a keen sense of humor helps us to overlook the unbecoming, understand the unconventional, tolerate the unpleasant, overcome the unexpected, and outlast the unbearable. Okay, if you don't have good communication skills and if you don't have good sense of humor, let's see what happens. This is one of the applications which came in. You see what the person says. Application. This has a reference to your advertisement calling for a typist and an accountant, male or female. As I am both and have been both for the past several years, I am applying for the post. You see, I support LGBT rights. I have no problem with LGBT rights, but at least you should make clear what you're trying to tell. The person wanted to say that I'm a typist as well as an accountant. ended up saying that I'm male as well as female. So the communication skills are extremely important. If you don't have good communication skills, then you'll murder the English. You murder the language in this manner. Look at this. Pick up the paper and fall in the dustbin. Both of you stand together separately. This is my favorite. Why are you looking at the monkeys outside when I am here? When teachers get angry in the class, many times teachers forget things. Will you hang the calendar or shall I, or else I will hang myself? Will you hang the calendar or else I will hang myself? Gosh, I have two daughters, both are girls. Give me a blue pen of any color. The principal is revolving in the corridor. Oopsie. All of you stand in a straight line. And finally, my favorite, open the window, let the Air Force come in. Really? I mean, that's why we need to have, and teachers have to be very thick-skinned, I tell you. Why? What happens? Because students will be like that. Look at what happened. Teaching is not for sensitive souls. While reviewing future, past, and present tense with my English class, I posed this question. I am beautiful is what tense? Student replied, past tense. So teachers have to be thick-skinned because students are very sharp, and we ought to remember all these multi-billion-dollar media industries are trying to attack our students' brains, and we as teachers are the only people standing in between. So we have to have these strong ethical principles. We should be well read in these aspects regarding moral philosophy and ethics, so that we can provide a strong software, antivirus software, so that our students can protect themselves from the onslaught of these multi-billion-dollar industries. When they say boost is the secret of our energy, our students should know vegetables, fruits, and dry fruits are the secret of our energy. दाने दाने में केसर का दम नहीं है, because if you eat दाने दाने में केसर का दम, you'll get cancer because it is tobacco. Okay, so kana kanadallu kesare shakti andre, that's a lie. Okay, there is no kesar, because we all know kesar is very expensive and they don't add kesar into that chit of tobacco. So these, with the sense of humor, we should make our classes more interesting than movie. So our students can bunk the movies and come to the classrooms. Otherwise, our film actors are taking our students away from the classroom to the movie cinemas, where they are not being showed very good movies, I must say. All violence, a lot of violence. So we need to make it more ethical. Art should not be for the sake of art. Art should be to improve the taste of people. Okay, so don't forget the etiquette. At the same time, don't forget the netiquette as well. Just because we are online, we don't see each other, doesn't mean we can be rude. We have to be very polite and courteous to each other, even though we are online. So etiquettes are gone now, netiquettes are coming in. Okay. Yeah, let it all come in. We are 21st century rocking teachers. We have all the tools at hand necessary to face any situations. Okay. So no matter what happens, we'll be ready. We'll not blame the students. We'll create a healthy environment by updating ourselves, by being lifelong learners, so that our students can freely, fearlessly learn with us together. Okay, let's try to make the world a better place. So even an emergency brain is needed, a thinking pedagogy to think on our feet. Okay, and we have to build a new paradigm. That's why we have this ACTE. If you haven't watched the movie, please watch this movie, A Space Odyssey. Very interesting movie. Okay, thank you very much for all your patience. For this presentation, you have to go through so many research papers. I had to. There is no shortcut to learning. Okay, here we go. Finally, that's my email address, Sagar. That's my email address, s.hirimat.11@ucl.ac.uk. Go on Facebook and type Sagar space AH. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram. Type Sagar_Earthling. You'll find me on Instagram. All the students are on Instagram. All the professors are on Facebook. I don't know why. That's why when I went to a lecture and said winner, winner, chicken dinner, only last bench students laughed. Teachers said I'm vegetarian. We have to keep our hand on students' pulse and know what is going on. This happened ago. Now at least we know, but we didn't know earlier. So Instagram also, teachers start using Sagar_Earthling. You can add me on Instagram. YouTube, Sagar Earthling. You can watch all my television interviews, and Twitter also, Sagar Earthling. So in your schools, colleges and universities, you can arrange lectures, FDPs. I'll be very happy to come along and speak to you all. Face to face is much better because we'll have a lot of activities. I'll see you on an 11th. Again on 11th, we'll speak on social network analysis as well as experimental methods in organizational behavior. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and press the bell icon so that you can get regular updates. Thank you very much for your patience. If you have any questions, you can fire away.
Thank you very much, Sagar, for your wonderful, enthusiastic and energy-filled lecture. So participants, if you have any questions, a couple of questions, because already we have 1:35. Next session we need to start at 2:30. So a couple of questions, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. I have.
Yeah. Yes, madam.
Okay, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, sir. Thank you very much, sir. It was really a very, we can say, wonderful session. Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sabia Mufti from Department of Commerce,
Okay.
School of Business Studies from University of Kashmir. So I'm from North.
Lovely.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sir, as you discussed in your lecture, as I said, it was really a wonderful lecture. Sir, I have an observation. As you said that nowadays the things are changing. We are moving to virtual world. Yes, we are moving. Sir, could you please tell us that how much now is the scope of a teacher? Because nowadays everybody is moving towards SIAM platform or other platforms which are online. But as you know that, for example, if I'm going to float a course on OB, organization behavior, so when I'm just browsing the net, it's already filled, it's already there. IIMs and other universities, other teachers, other senior faculty members, they have already booked the slot. So there is no chance for me. But nowadays it's, it's a need of an hour for promotion and other things. So, sir, how you can define that a teacher is still having the scope? This is my
Very
one
simple.
first.
Yeah.
This is my one question, sir.
Thank you for the
Sir,
question.
this is
It's
my
very nice to have you from
yes,
long
sir.
way. This is the beauty. People from Kashmir and all over the country and all over the world can attend the session and discuss equally. You raised a very good question. In my faculty development programs, I ask teachers, what makes a good teacher? You know, all the teachers say passion, commitment, enthusiasm, love, affection, personal touch, all these things they said, but none of the teachers said NET. Nobody said NET, nobody said PhD. It was very interesting. So then we ourselves realized in the workshop what actually matters. You know, what actually matters is things like passion, commitment, enthusiasm, personal touch, which you won't find online. So it's not about covering the syllabus. That's why I use this joke. I always say in my lectures, the syllabus is such a vulgar thing, it has to be covered. But our duty as a teacher is to uncover it and to raise pertinent questions. It's like,
Exactly, sir. Exactly.
raising questions which makes them think while walking home. Actually what I do in the classes, I tell my teachers in the faculty development program, what I do is I tell them, I ask a question, one of the teachers agrees, the other teacher disagrees. So what I do now is, your friend disagrees with you. What do you think about it? What do you think? So I get them to discuss with each other. So I say, this is what you should do in the class. You should let them argue politely, respectfully with ideas, and you stand with the kerosene. The more they argue, as soon as it comes down, you pour more kerosene, let them argue more. Then once the class is over, they'll attack the library because they want to gain more knowledge about this interesting thing about which just in the class. Instead of that, if you just go to the class and try to fill the vessel, that they can do it online itself, because as you said, lot of materials from all over the world, from Harvard, Cambridge, MIT, they've all uploaded it online. So all this material they can find online, but the fire, the passion, the enthusiasm to pursue it unconditionally, that only we can develop among students. That's why virtue ethics also plays a role in that. That it's contagious. It's contagious. For example, if I sit in the lecture and say, good morning, today we are discussing about this, and then they'll be disinterested about the subject.
Interested, yes, sir.
So the teacher's duty is to make students fall in love with it. If a boy is in love with a girl, I need not tell the boy what color rose to give. The boy will look for it. He'll do research of his own.
Exactly,
So,
sir, exactly.
teacher's
So that
duty.
means that we are having still scope if we are having a physical classes, because
But it is
I
challenging.
also do have the same thinking and methodology. Yes, physical touch and expression, they are important.
But
Sir,
it
my
is
second
challenging.
question.
But
Oh,
it is
sir, my,
challenging. There is a college in Bangalore which has introduced the robot in the class. Okay, the robot
yes,
has all the data stored, and students have been given this button. If they press the button, the robot repeats in beautiful voice. So even if you ask 1,000 times, the robot will repeat and never get tired. All the information that Google can give. Okay, and the robot will never say, "Should I repeat 1,000 times? What were you doing?" It won't say. It will keep repeating. So how teachers have to keep their identity, how they have to be unique in this manner, we have to really think. Okay, because such innovations are coming in. Okay, so that's why bad teachers will find it extremely difficult if they don't want to update, if they don't want to learn new things, if they're not flexible, if they're not humorous, then students will not find it interesting because they can study it online. But if you're humorous, if you make classes interesting, you're passionate, you're enthusiastic, then obviously nobody can replace you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
sir,
So we
my
have
second question is regarding ethics. What you taught, that we are having two utilitarianism. We are having different theories in ethics, but one of the important theory which you touched is the utilitarianism. That simply means giving greatest happiness to the greatest people.
Yeah,
Greatest number of people, isn't it, sir?
yeah,
Sir,
yeah.
how, sir, I'm also of the same opinion, because I'm teaching OB, I'm teaching ethics also. But students at time, they raise this query, and I have this thing always in my mind. And I tried my level best to settle down them. But this time I got I got an opportunity to discuss this with you, sir. Sir, in OB we teach about, we usually teach about human relations, that how humanity is important in human resource also. But at the same time, if we take this utilitarianism, aren't we killing one person, his family? Like you quoted the example of the hospital given by Emmanuel Kant in his book. So it's like, okay, fine, but we are killing one human. That means we are doing against the ethics, sir.
No, as I said, there are conflicts. It's not always good versus bad. It's sometimes good versus good. Also, there are conflicts. We have to make difficult decisions, and this is one of the trolley problems. Is one of the difficult decisions we have to make. It is there to. The trolley problem is not to find solution. The thought experiment is given to understand the complexity of moral decisions, because both decisions, if you make, you will have done something wrong. Both decisions are not perfect. Okay, if you follow utilitarianism and if you save 5 people and you sacrifice one person, then as you said, the family of one individual, and you will be personally responsible for that person's death. If you don't do anything and stand, then 5 people and all the 5 people's families would have suffered. So both ways you would have made a mistake. It is there to demonstrate that moral problems are not black and white. It's not as simple as we think. There is no hero and villain. Both times we have to make difficult decisions, and it requires choosing. Okay, that's why we have rationale, logic, and things like that, which we think and try to make the best of the situation at the moment.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we'll have one more question, last one. Sharmila has raised a hand. Please go ahead, Sharmila.
Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible clearly?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I have one question. Like, so many researches are carried out in every field, but whatever the research findings are, really people follow that, because there are researches related to environment, pollution, climate change, global warming, and I have read somewhere that the number of people died due to COVID overall. And if we calculate the number of people dying of global warming, climate change, and environment pollution, it's more than the number of casualties of COVID.
Yeah.
So what my question is that when the government all over the world announced global lockdown, due to COVID. People are dying of hunger and so many other due to COVID.
True.
So what is your observation on this point?
See, as I said, human beings always, we all through history, if you look at our development, we see immediate threats and we prepare ourselves, but we are not able to foresee the threats which are coming in the future and we are not preparing ourselves for it. As I said, what is sensationalized, we look at that, but we ignore the regular things which are happening. For example, malnutrition is still prevailing. Okay, malnutrition is still prevailing. Fundamental basic problems are still prevailing. But when something is sensationalized, like World Trade Center happened, it was sensationalized. We felt very sorry for 3,000 people who died, which is very good. We should feel very sorry for what happened. But we completely ignored, and we are still ignoring the fact that 3,000 people every day are dying, children every day are dying of malnutrition. This is like Peter Singer's thought experiment, which we discussed today. Drowning child. You're wearing 4 lakh shoe. You are ready to sacrifice 4 lakh to save a child. But whereas another child is dying far away out of hunger and poverty, but we are not able to send anything. So this is the kind of human nature we have noticed. That doesn't mean human nature won't change. As we see through education, we can change. We can bring change in human beings. That's why we have all become teachers, I believe. We have become teachers because we believe human nature can be changed through education. Okay, we have that tendency. That's what we believe. Maybe in the future research may say otherwise, but as of now, as little as we know about human brain, we think through good education, through good exposure, human nature can be cultivated. That's what we feel. And that's why we are working. So as you pointed out, hopefully we will start recognizing these problems, that just because without planning, if you suddenly bring a lockdown, many people will die of starvation, hunger and poverty. If you focus only on middle class and the rich who can bring all the food, hold it at home and protect themselves, what about the poor who can't hold food and protect themselves, what they have to do? These things also had to be thought through carefully. That's why government made a utilitarian decision. Okay, at the same time, you see many a times middle class people, people who use internet and all the social media, their voices are heard more. But people who don't have access to all these things, their voices are unheard. So we need strong representation for these laborers and these people who are struggling and working every day, so that their voices can also be heard as loudly as the voice of the middle class and upper middle class and the rich, who have easy access to power as well as easy access to social media. So at least they can make videos and they can do all that and upload. But these, for example, the march of death, when sudden lockdown was announced and people had to migrate, had to go home and they walked, that was such a heart-wrenching and terrible thing to see. But it was unplanned, it was suddenly announced, hence we faced those consequences. We have to learn lessons and try our best not to repeat these mistakes again. But again, I must say, this virus was hit so badly that people were so confused. Nobody knew what to do. For example, if you see, everybody tells their children become a doctor. Nobody says join medicine. You know, not many people say you can do BSc, then you can do MSc, and then you can do drug development. When COVID was hit, doctors could not do anything because they didn't have any medicine. None of the traditional medicines were working appropriately. So we needed these MSc graduates, these scientists, to do drug development and come up with medicine. So, but many times if somebody says I'm studying BSc, people think it is, they look down on it. Oh, you're not an engineer, you're not a doctor, you're just studying BSc, it's useless. But unless these scientists, BSc, MSc, PhD holder scientists, if they don't do research, then doctors don't have medicine to administer. So we have to think through in different directions. That's why critical thinking is very important. Unless we develop critical thinking, we don't put ourselves in other people's shoes and think. And unless we don't put ourselves in other people's shoes and think, we'll only be living in our own head and not in the real world. Okay, I hope that gives an answer to your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I have one more question. It's related to work from home. When we are working from home, I'm facing so much of communication issues from my organization. I mean, I'm not getting responses for my calls and messages. So what should be done to handle such situation?
If you go to YouTube, if you look at all the clips of what kind of disasters have happened during online sessions, you will have a good laugh. It is everyone's facing these problems. Many people are caught out in unpleasant situation when they are online. So all we have to do is, instead of not doing anything, we are at least able to, our students are able to hear our voice. That experience is better. We must have to thank for that, because online classes, everybody is facing problems. Okay, but the only solace is that we are at least able to do something, if not, but there is no substitution to face-to-face discussion, dialogue, because you can read each other's emotions, okay, and you can talk, but there is no substitution. We are just trying to make the best of what we, maybe 5G is coming up. If 5G comes in, maybe internet will get faster and the connectivity problems will be solved. That's just a pie in the sky. Let's hope it materializes.
Okay, thank you,
sir.
Sagar. Thank you, Sagar, for your wonderful session and also thought-provoking answers for the questions of the participants. So we'll meet again on 11th, the morning session. Okay, dear participants, we'll have the third session on emotional intelligence by Ramani at 2:30. Today it is just a little bit late because of the opening ceremony of ATAL FDP. So tomorrow there will be no problems. So we'll meet again at 2:30. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.